Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello for the third time today. I hope you all are doing fantastically well. And yes, wow, nighttime is coming here. As you can see, it's pitch black dark in my neck of the woods already. And Bryce, you're looking all summery and all of that lovely stuff. So I hope you all are fantastic as well. How you doing, Bryce?
I am really, really great. I apologize that we're a little bit late. That was totally my fault. I had something unexpected happen, but I'm so excited to be here. I was telling you that I caught part one with Jesse this morning when I was driving home from teaching. I was a little bit late, so I had to go back to the beginning. And then I went for a run today and I listened to part two. And so I'm super excited to kind of follow up on the tales of what Jesse said, because she's the person that really knows what's up. I just research. And I was telling you off camera, that some of the stuff she was saying makes absolute sense to me, even as a non-Mormon. But I have read the Book of Mormon and I was like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. If you've read the Book of Mormon, what she's saying, you should have some alarm bells going off, because it all connects. So I'm super excited to kind of crack this back open. I know it's been an exhausting day for you. How are you, Shanti, with being on one show after the next?
I'm good. I'm actually good, but shame, I was, as I was saying, also saying to off camera, we had obviously on Aquarius Rising Africa, though, we had the double trouble day with Jesse, and we're now going into the Mormon church and the Mormon temples. And I mean, as everyone who's watched Jesse knows, man, oh man, if anyone knows anything about the system and how it's worked and how it's laid out, that lady does. She's actually given us permission to use some of her pictures and stuff if we need to. I'm not sure if we'll need it tonight, but anyway. And I think it was particularly traumatic for her today as well, because especially in part two, where she speaks about being at these rituals. I mean, these churches, they bury people alive.
Yeah.
There's blood in the bricks, these brick companies and stuff. She's already mentioned right in the beginning of doing the shows how, a lot of the remains of the kids are crushed up and put into the bricks and how the Masons use them to build these temples. Now, I didn't quite realize she's actually talking about the Mormon church, right? And also she was talking today about people being buried alive there, and also being in these cages. And they literally have, what I've realized for the first time about the Mormon upper echelon, if you will. It's all the Aztecs, Mayans, and the Incas, the really dark aspects of that. Because if you also go back in history, you see those guys have built the most beautiful temples, right?
Oh, yeah.
They certainly knew how to build temples. I mean, if you look at the Mormon temples, how the majority of them are really beautiful. I mean, aesthetically, they are completely beautiful. But when you see what's in the foundations of them, and also the bricks and the brick companies take blood, the living blood, and they mix it with the bricks, because obviously of the life that the blood has that is building these temples. And of course, the Mormons have got the same rituals and things behind the scenes as what the Aztecs, the Incas, and the Mayans have had.
Yeah.
And that disgusting, where they literally slash you open, take your entrails out, and then they read the entrails. They read the entrails. And in fact, on Caleb's show the other day, that we were talking about that briefly, and Caleb was actually mentioning that as well. But very, and I know it was the first time today, shame that Jesse actually spoke about that, because it was reliving very traumatic memories for her, and even though, what she's also said is that in her position, obviously she was not allowed to be drugged. She was not MK Ultra.
I heard that.
Because she had to, she had to have all of that. She had to be cognitive of all of that.
Yeah.
But they never told her that she was going to live through it, right? So they make you believe that you next. So they sit and they traumatize the kids by forcing them to watch these kids get ripped apart, cannibalized right there, and then thrown into these burning fires. Exactly the way that the Incas, Aztecs, and Mayans did.
And
As
the Canaanites. The Canaanites did the exact same thing.
Yeah,
But, you know, in the Old Testament, and it's, you know, I will say, like, you know, and I could tell too, listening to, and of course I wasn't watching the chat because I was running, but listening to her, I could tell that it was hard to talk about. But you know what? I did see her. I would look up occasionally. At least she looked beautiful doing it, because we know that the cabal is not very attractive. So at least Jessie looked beautiful doing it.
Yeah, well, like you always say, we're pretty cute on this side of the coin.
Not only was she, maybe her voice was a little shaky, but she was a gorgeous badass up there.
No, sure.
You know, so
I felt my heart was so sore for her, and it still is, I have to say, because I really felt her. And
like
but you know, we're doing a deep dive. I mean, we're not finished. We've only just started on this journey with
the Mormon. There's a lot to this, and that again was mine. I mean, long before I even, because I'm, as you guys know, I'm nosy. I'm a nosy bitch. So, you know, this was long before I was ever on YouTube, and I was not ever going to consider joining the Mormon Church. But I was just like, you know what? I don't actually know what they believe. I knew there was a third book, like a third testament. And that's when I just went and got the Book of Mormon. I was like, well, I'll just read it. I'll read it. I haven't gone through Doctrine and Covenants, their other book, but and I will say, you guys, I know I've talked about this before, but it bears repeating. There is a podcast called My Book of Mormon. And it is a guy who, I believe, if I remember correctly, he was a preacher's son, like a Protestant, you know, mainstream Christian guy's son. So he grew up with the Bible. And so he decided to record himself, just like me. He was like, what do the Mormons believe? Let's just read the Book of Mormon for shits and giggles and see what they believe. And so he's reading the Book of Mormon on the podcast out loud. And it is one of the funniest podcasts, because there is some really wacky stuff in the Book of Mormon, especially coming from mainstream Christianity. So to hear his, like, he reads something and he gives his thoughts, which is kind of what you're thinking too. It's hysterical. So if you guys if you don't want to read the Book of Mormon, but you're more interested in, like, you can always get that podcast and just listen to him. Like, it's like Audible, but with commentary, you know? So, it's called My Book of Mormon. And so, yeah.
Is it on YouTube?
You know, it's just on, I think it's just, he might have it on YouTube now, but this was back in the day before, when people had they have the podcast app on your cell phone.
Right. Right. Okay.
Yeah. And so he's
the
Audible one. Yeah. He's hysterical, because he's just like us. Like, he's a normal guy.
It's on YouTube. Let me just check if it's on YouTube.
My Book of Mormon. My Book of Mormon is the name of the podcast. And he, as a non-Mormon, just like I am, just like Shanti, never was. I believe he did in one interview talk. He's kind of more agnostic now. Like, he doesn't follow, from what I remember. I apologize if that's not correct, but he grew up very Christian, but has kind of walked away from religion, kind of like myself. You know?
It looks like it is.
Oh, cool.
This one here, it's like that. Blue.
Yeah, so he put it on YouTube, and you just probably see, there's probably no, like, picture. It's just a picture of the icon, but it's hysterical. If you guys want to read, if you're just curious to read the Book of Mormon, but you don't want to read it for yourself, you can listen to him, and at least he gives you some pretty comical commentary while he's reading about. But when Jessie said that today, when she was talking about the Native American, the Maya, the Aztec, the Inca, the dark side of these cultures, it didn't surprise me at all when she said that. I was kind of like, I was running. I was like, I hope I didn't say this out loud, because I'm sure I had my earphones on. I'm sure people around me probably like, what? I was in the park. I probably went like, duh. Like, oh yeah. Like, obviously, in my head, I was like, duh, Bryce, of course. Because if anybody's read the Book of Mormon, I'm just giving a brief overview. Literally, so Joseph Smith in the 1800s, basically, he claimed he lived in New England, up in the New York, Vermont area. He claimed that God appeared to him. It's called the first vision, and it was God and Jesus that appeared to him. And of course, his first vision changes over time, so obviously that's suspect, because usually when you have something pretty profound happen, it doesn't change. The story never changes, right? So So we have this guy, Joseph Smith, who apparently was shown these golden tablets that carried the story of the Native Americans. And this became the Book of Mormon. All right. So the story goes that these Lehi, this Jewish guy, and this was like 600 BC, right? So 600 years before the Christ came, right? So he's living in Jerusalem, Lehi, with his family, and he's kind of, the Mormon Church is big on visions. Like, I know a lot of faith, a lot of religions are big on visions, like, but the Mormon faith is like super big on. This is where like Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow, why their psychosis, I'll say, was able to get out of hand, because the Mormon Church enables visions. And I'm not saying people don't have visions, but if you're taking everyone's basic daydream as a vision from God, then things can run amok, right? To say the least. I mean, now we've got 2 dead kids, 2 dead adults, probably more, because
But you know what I think could have also happened there, and I mean, again, this is pure speculation with the likes of Chad. And guys, I want to say to Asia Rain is joining us on Monday night as well.
Yeah,
and I'd love to, and it is my plan to get Asia and Jesse on a podcast together as well. She is amazing, and Asia is also one of the original. She started reclaiming and recalling her memories in the early 2000s already. So she's one of the original, and she does amazing work now with Mormon people coming out of the system. Really,
yeah.
she's just one very special lady.
And I already have so much respect for her for speaking out and being brave to do that. Because the Mormon Church, it's like Scientology, right? They're like $1 billion company, right? So.
Well, I mean, the Mormon Church is a lot more powerful than the Scientologists. And that's why today I was saying as well, I just got this feeling, wow, what we're doing, it's dangerous. We definitely treading on dangerous turf, because, the Mormon Church, it's one of the pillars of the Illuminati officially. So it'll be even more powerful. So you can imagine if the Scientologists are doing what they're doing to silence people, you've got to know that this is super.
Listen, you and Jesse are so much cuter than the quorum of the 12. They're all old, nasty men. Like, they're just jealous. They're so jealous.
Jelly. They're all jelly.
They're so jelly. They're like, these young, cute chicks are calling us on our shit.
Exactly. But I think, and it's like Asia was actually saying to me when I was having a meeting with her the other day, it's like she's saying, these guys are all programmed. When you see what these guys are doing to the kids, how they're taking them in and how they already sort of ritually abusing them and doing, I mean, I'll leave that up to Asia to speak about that. But these guys have obviously grown up Mormon as well. And I have no doubt that they've been brainwashed. They've no doubt been MK Ultra'd. And I have no doubt that, he probably had these visions of his in a dream or near death or whatever it was. He hello, Jessica, whatever he professes to, or wherever he professes to have gotten this information from. I have no doubt that he actually thought he was doing the right thing. And he's a good guy.
I think
and really believing it. That's the scary part.
Case. I will, because they play it all day on YouTube, and I'll sign in a little bit and you can see him. He is, and yes, hi Jessica, the Cryptic Huntress. You guys totally gonna just You should check her out, you guys. She comes on with Shanti on Tuesdays, but totally go check her channel out too. But
she's fabulous. Love you, Jess. I have been, all the Jessies and the Jessicas.
I know we got so many cool Jessies and Jessicas, don't we? I have been fascinated by the Mormons for such a long time. And I think listening to Jesse today kind of explains why so many people are fascinated by the Mormon faith. Because if you look at the statistics of like the Mormon Stories podcast, like these ex Mormons that have these podcasts, they'll tell you most of their demographic of viewers were people who were never in the Mormon church. But this religion is so freaky deaky, and it's half of it is so hidden. It's wackadoo, you guys. Like, it's half of it is hidden. So, and it's very, so when you're coming from like a mainstream, and again, you guys, we know mainstream Christianity, lots of problems too. But if you're going to compare the two, mainstream Christianity does not do as many things as secret as the Mormons do. The Mormons not only do things in secret, but they pump it up. Like, this is a big deal to be able to go to the temple and be good enough to do these things. You can't just go to nobody, And so I think that's why it's so fascinating. I think those of us that were never Mormons, and I was saying to you, Shantae, I think I was saying it off air with some of the trolls, the Mormon trolls that are coming, that the problem, as a researcher myself, as someone who is never a Mormon, there are some things about this faith that I'm never going to be able to have access to because I'm never going to get into the temple, right? So I've never been a Mormon, right? I would have to literally, like, what's that saying? Like, I'm not dumb enough to fall for a cult, but I am nosy enough. Like, I would literally have to join the cult in order to like figure out what was going on in the temple. Like, talk about a very dedicated double agent. I'm not going to do that. But in the flip side of that, I think for those of us who are never Mormons, we are able to view the curriculum, we're able to view the dogma, the religion from a very different lens because we're not emotional about it. And so we can see the patterns. So with this, like going back to the Aztec and the Maya stuff, like Joseph Smith, who, you guys, like, I know that the Mormon church venerates him as a prophet. He was nothing but a freaking con man. Like, this guy I think it's pretty obvious to those of us who were not raised Mormon, it's laughable. His visions are literally laughable because, first of all, he can't get a story straight. It constantly changes. And he claims to have been shown these like golden tablets that told the story of the Americas. So this was in the 1800s. So this was early 1800s. So right after the American Revolution. So, and this was a theory that was around at that time where people were trying to figure out where the Native Americans came from. There was a huge theory that they must have been the part of the missing tribes of Israel. Okay. Well, we know that's not the case now. So the whole Book of Mormon is this story that Joseph alleges he got from these golden tablets that were hidden up in the mountains, the Appalachian Mountains of New England, that told the story of the original inhabitants, the origin story of the Native Americans was this man, this patriarch named Lehi and his sons and their wives. And basically, so it states that 600 years before Jesus came, Yahshua came. We'll say Jesus because that's another sign that, if Joseph Smith was, and the way he translated the golden tablets, guys, was through magic. He had a hat and a rock. I mean, it's wackadoo. It is super wackadoo. That he
divination.
Yeah.
He was fully into divination.
Yep.
Yeah.
Folk magic. And he basically, so he translates these tablets, but it comes out sounding like the King James Bible, so like Old English. So that's suspect, right? Because if these were thousands of years old tablets, they wouldn't sound like King James English. And we also know a big red flag is that he used the name Jesus. So the J sound did not exist back then. So Jesus, in an old tablet, he would never be referred to as Jesus. He would have been referred to as Yeshua, because the J sound did not exist. So that's another red flag. But anyway, I digress. So this guy, according to the Book of Mormon, this dude, now I will give Joseph credit where credit is due. Dude had a wild imagination, like totally, like he came up with a pretty whopper of a story. So I will give him credit where credit is due. It would probably be a bestseller if it was in the fiction aisle, right? So Lehi starts to get these revelations, and they talk about this a lot in Mormonism, like the visions again, like these personal revelations. Everyone's a fucking prophet. Everyone's out there like a street corner preacher having these visions. And so Lehi is in Jerusalem 600 years before Christ, and he's being told that the whole country is going to, like, Jerusalem's going to collapse. Now, we do know that the Babylonians do come in and invade, so that kind of gives more substance to Lehi's visions, although Lehi never existed, right? So Lehi, there's this whole stuff that's going on in Jerusalem before they actually get on the boats and find America, right? And they have to like kill Laban. Nephi, the son of Lehi, has to go and kill this guy Laban to get these Lehi, definitely high on something. Well, Nephi, I mean, all the names, he's like literally doing eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Like, he's just rhyming names. That's how he's creating these characters. Talk about, if you've ever been in creative writing classes, talk about character development, right? So yes, and there is Edith. There is some theories that there are some stuffs he plagiarized from other books as well. I have heard that too. But Nephi the
Yeah.
son, who is one of Lehi, he's like Lehi's golden child. Like he's this really devout son of Lehi. He has to kill this guy, like decapitate this man named Laban in order to get these like genealogy records, basically. So it's interesting that, Jesse's talked a lot about that. So that's kind of starts the Book of Mormon, where Nehi is being ordered by God. If God is telling you to cut someone's head off, it ain't God. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. That ain't God. You're not hearing God. But it's a fake story anyway, so whatever. So he chops his head off. He takes the genealogy records. They're told, kind of like Noah, to like build a boat. And they get on this boat and they sell. God tells them to go west. And so what happens? They sail from Jerusalem through the Mediterranean Sea into the Atlantic Ocean, and boom, they hit what? They hit the Americas. Now, according to many Mormons that I followed, they believe that the original characters, Lehi and his family, came to America. They hit in what would be Mexico, so the Latin American area. So all this stuff. So they, according to the Book of Mormon, now originally the Book of Mormon said this was the start of the Native American people. So there was no human beings on this continent, the American continent, until Lehi and his family landed on boats. All right. But then when DNA testing became available, oops, because it shows that Native Americans are not Jewish. They're Asian.
Right.
So then the Book of Mormon had to change history and say some. Now they've changed it to some of the Native Americans were descendants of Lehi and his family. But remember, Joseph Smith said they all were. So keeping that in mind, Joseph Smith's characters, Lehi and his family, let's say that Joseph Smith is correct. He wasn't, but let's just to understand where the Native American practices or the Aztec, Mayan, Incan practices come into play with Mormonism. You are talking about Lehi and his family, these Jewish people that come to the Americans, and they, over the generations, they're having babies and they're establishing nations here in the Americas. Well, what are these nations? The Maya, the Aztec, and the Inca. So they're doing these rituals, which, according to the Book of Mormon, come from Jewish rituals, right? And she talked about the bloodline thing. Mormons are really big. They all believe that they come from, like, they don't consider themselves to be like Gentiles. Like, I'm a white girl from Georgia. I'm as Gentile as they come. I don't care. I mean, that's what we are, right, Shanti? We're Gentiles. Like, that's just what. So you've got these people in Utah with blonde ass hair and blue eyes walking around thinking they're part of the lost tribes of Israel. No, your ancestors were freaking European Gentiles, honey. Like, look at you. Like, you look like you should be skiing in the Alps. Like, come on. But they believe it's that they're given. And I guess Jesse can speak, and I'm talking about the lay people, y'all. I know Jesse went deep into like the secret stuff and but I'm talking about the regular Joe Schmoes, the Molly Morgans, like the Molly Mormons, like the regular people believe that they're from one of the 10 tribes of Israel. And it's important. So they all know who their patriarch is, and they are God's chosen people. It's wackadoo. It's absolute. Listen, I've done my DNA. I don't got any Jewish inside of me. Like, I got nothing from the Middle East, except for I got a little bit of Lebanese, but no Jewish inside of me, right? I am like English, French, German, Scandinavian, Greek. I mean, obviously, nothing shocking there, right? So when I lived in California, I was around a lot of Mormons in California, and that was always fascinating to me because, of course, I wouldn't say anything, but as a non-Mormon, I'd be like, "You're just as white as I am. What makes you think you come from like this tribe of Israel? Like, you're not Jewish, boo. Like, you're not. You're just not." So anyway, so they really believe that they are a chosen people. That they are like which again is a sign of a pecking order, which is always negative polarity.
Yeah,
So
it's a little bit Delulu, it's really,
Delulu.
yeah, absolutely,
But that's where,
That's that hierarchy, you know, that
yes,
sense of importance, that self-importance, sort of putting one above the other. One is more important than the other. And again, you know, that's that whole, I mean, if we go just going back to the whole Chad Daybell story, he certainly had that belief system that he
yeah,
was
I think
this
he still
important
does.
person. Yeah, definitely.
Well,
Definitely.
and
I
that's
wonder if he actually does he have any supporters at court?
not that I've seen at court, but I've been really listening a lot to these and I will say, okay, so there's Lauren Mathias, Dr. John's wife, and then there's this guy named Nate Eaton. He's from East Idaho News, Nate Eaton. I've really enjoyed both of them. And what I enjoy, both of them are reporters who kind of went off on their own and have done their own YouTube channels. So they're able to give you their unbiased views as a journalist, but also be a little bit biased at the same time.
A little bit
And
journalisty.
yeah, but I will say, because I'm really appreciating some of these journalists who work for bigger networks who have left the big networks and are
Yeah,
doing things by. I
yeah,
really appreciate
absolutely.
they're trained. They know how, obviously being a journalist. I mean, part of what I do is journalistic. You just have to snoop. You just have to dig, right? But when you do go to school for journalism, I do think they do have an edge above because they're able to learn how to look at certain things. And so they have, both Nate Eaton and Laura Matthias have pulled up very interesting information evolving. I think Chad Daybell, one of them, I can't remember which one it was, said that there are about 1,000 people that are connected to this subcult of the Mormon faith. What? That's concerning. Then of course you have a vow, which I think we spoke about last week, which a vow is another voice of warning. And again, there's a lot of similarities. So if you take Mormonism out of it, and this is another reason why I told you, Shanti, I wanted to go over this case with you, because you and I both have been very skeptical of the truther community as well. Like the community we find
Yeah.
ourselves in, both of us have been kind of like, wait a minute, this just feels like this just feels like the same, a different
A
wing of the
whole
same
bunch of
bird.
rubbish.
Yes. And so when I started, one thing I noticed early on listening to the Chad Daybell, Lori Vallow stuff was how similar their beliefs actually are to a lot of truther beliefs, right? And
Yeah.
that's why it's important to talk about this too, because we have to be able to check ourselves, like where am I being delusional? Where's my blind spot in all this? I need to come back down to earth for a second, because I don't want anybody to end up in the situation that, I don't care about Chad or Lori, but like the children ended up in, or the adults. And basically the people that, they ended up offing were people that just didn't like them, that were skeptical of what they were saying, right? So there, that, when you have another voice of warning, the Avow website, it is a prepper. So obviously Mormons, it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is not uncommon in any Christian belief, right? Most Christian beliefs and organizations very much focus on the end times, right? The revelation, that the mark of the beast, the antichrist. I mean, even Jesse was talking about that today. So a lot of Christianity is based around this idea that Jesus is going to come back again, which I don't think, I think that it's more about the Christ conscious coming back, but that's a story for a different day. Right. So, but I think a lot of the mainstream Christian churches are kind of over it. They're like, yeah, the end times are coming, but maybe not for another 100. Like they've kind of been through this for a while. Well, Mormonism, as started by Joseph Smith only like 200 years ago, it's a very young religion, um, really focuses on the fact that we are in the end times. It's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So they consider themselves to be saints, right? So they are the people ushering in the end times. So with that idea, that knowledge that their whole church is based really around this idea that they are living in the last days, we have this huge prepper movement in the Mormon church. So what do I mean by prepper? Now, I'm talking about, I've said this, like in our pantry, our storage, we have a couple of jugs of like rice and beans that we've had for a while because they'll last for a really long time. I would not consider that prepping compared to the Mormons. The Mormons, if you go on the Avow website, and you have to pay to get in, but I've listened to other people talk about it. Some of these independent journalists have actually paid and they're on it and they're sharing stuff. These people are spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a month to prep.
Yeah, they are. They do. I know that. I've spoken to a few people who have information on that. I mean, they've got this big thing. You've got to store, you've got to keep, it's the end of times. So, yeah. I mean, it's
They
the
so
the
they
brainwashing is strong. The
It's
brainwashing is
awesome.
strong.
And they're playing on people's fear, like that the world's gonna end. You have to be prepared. That you need to have like I was listening to the daughter. There's a 3-part interview on Mormon Stories with the daughter of one of the leaders of the Avow website. And to listen to her talk about her childhood and how much prepping. I mean, ammunition. They loaded up on alcohol and cigarettes to use to barter, not to smoke. I mean, listen, y'all, I'm just be honest for a second. If we could just have a moment of honesty. If the world started falling apart and I had a backlog of vodka and cigarettes, I probably would start smoking and drinking, right? Let's just be honest. If all of a sudden shit started falling from the sky, I'd probably be like, hold, I need to be drunk for this. Like, I need my faculties to be a little relaxed for this. But they hoard up these things, hoard them so that they can go and barter, right? So if the end times come, people who are smokers or drinkers, they have something to barter with them for, right? And they all this camping gear, and they believe. Have you heard of the call out, Shanti? The call out.
Mm-mm.
So this is a belief in Mormonism that there's going to be what they, and I'm still not quite sure what it is, but from what I understand is they believe that when the latter days come, when the end of time comes, there is going to be a call out, meaning that the president or prophet of the church, who right now, you guys, their prophet is 99 years old. Like, I don't think that man wipes his own ass anymore. I think he's in a diaper. Like, that's their prophet, which is kind of funny. Like, that's why I'm saying, like, their people aren't that cute in the high ups. That he's gonna, like, all the people who have prepped are gonna be like asked to come and bring their supply. Like, it sounds like you're gonna get an award or something if you've prepped the most. Well, when we talk about prepping to you guys, and this plays into the Chad Daybell, Lori Vallow, because the Mormon religion is so super focused on the Americas, they think that the Garden of Eden was in America. They think New Jerusalem is going to be in America. They think Zion is going to be in America. And I'm not saying it's not, I don't know, but they are heavily focused on the Americas because that's the whole Book of Mormon, right? Is that and again, as Jesse was saying, what is that? When she was talking about the Maya, the Aztec, and the Inca, I was like, ding, 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 like, duh, of course they do rituals like that because their whole freaking book is based upon the creation of the native, of what they perceive to be the creation of the Native Americans. And they perceive that the Native Americans came from freaking Jerusalem. So of course they think that all of these rituals the Mayans did were ordained by God, even though they're really racist, like the white and delightsome stuff, I was listening to an interview.
I agree, Charmaine. I think that's really. I mean, okay, come and show us what you've stored. Bring it to your prophet. Let us see. It will give you some kind of. Yeah, it's like at the end of the day, next thing you get thrown into the fires.
Yeah,
and just so that they can snack your food.
Well, with Chad Daybell, he and his fake visions. He believed that Zion, or the place of where everyone was going to flock to at the end of days, was going to be Rexburg, Idaho. Which, no offense, Rexburg, Idaho, but like Rexburg, Idaho, Idaho, always goes in my head. Idaho, Idaho. It's like a tiny ass town. What? Like, I don't think if there's going to be one piece of land that's going to survive this apocalypse, I don't think it's going to be there. No offense, Rexburg, Idaho looks beautiful, but just the delusion in his head. And Rexburg, Idaho is like 3 hours north of Salt Lake City, which is like Salt Lake City is like their Vatican, right? That's where the main temple is. I know Jesse spoke a little bit about that. So it's 3 hours north. And so Chad moved his family to Rexburg from Utah because He was literally living out the religion of Mormonism. And that's what so many I listen to all these mainstream Mormons try to disown Chad Daybell. But for me, as someone as a non-Mormon who studied Mormonism, who's not emotionally invested in the religion, I'm like, no, Chad was a practicing Mormon. Like, this is what the Mormons believe. This is in your
Yeah, he's
documents.
not the only one. I mean,
No,
he
this
might have been
literally-
extreme in that. He might have been extreme in his beliefs, and he might have, taken his pendulum definitely too far. And absolutely, when you start killing people because you believe they're zombies,
yep.
because you want the woman that is the common denominator in all their lives, there's something that's pushing you too far.
Oh,
There's something
absolutely.
that's definitely going a little bit too
It's playing
far
on
with
your
that guy
ego.
as
It's
well.
playing on your
Yeah,
ego
for
and your
sure.
arrogance. And I think that's what Mormonism does. I think a lot of religions do this. Like I'm not going to negate that. I think a lot of religions play on the us versus them, and our people are the chosen people. And in my opinion, the God that I serve, the God that I believe in, doesn't. We're all His chosen people. It
No,
doesn't matter.
that's what I'm saying. It's like these people get ahead of themselves with this and that. And I mean, when we're looking at the 144,000, it's something so completely different to people.
Yes.
It really is. It relates to the chakras, by the way.
Yeah.
But that's a story for another day, and it's how
Yeah.
you activate. And when you're looking at the different chakras that have the different number of petals, they all mean something, and you take it all. But anyway, that's a story for another day. It really is. The bottom line is it's about you accessing your God-given code, if you will. We're all born with our own unique coding, and it's awakening that. And when you awaken that, that's when you enliven and you transcend, basically, the
And
lower rung energies.
isn't that the kind of the problem with a lot of these religions is that they're looking for something outside of themselves to validate themselves.
Totally,
And that's not what, and I
totally.
know Charmaine just put pride. Yeah, it's pride, and pride cometh before the fall. I feel like the more you spiritually awaken, in a lot of ways, the more humble you become. I was having a
Yeah.
conversation with my one of my students the other day. He's from India, and he's studied so many different lineages, and he's been in martial arts, and he's really into the philosophy. And we were chit-chatting, and I said, the funny thing is the more you practice, the more you go deeper into yourself, the more you actually realize you're a nobody. Like, we're nobodies. Like, we're just spirits. We're all equal. There's no, it's like Sri Swami Satyananda in his commentary of the Yoga Sutras. He talks about the more you get in touch with your own soul, the more you see the soul in other people too. You don't see yourself as better than anybody else. You literally see their soul in their eyes as well.
You're
And
one, that's the
yeah,
thing. We are all one. And that's a very difficult concept for a lot of people to understand, but God is the sun. I mean, if you want to use an analogy, God is the sun and we are the rays. So it's like we all given, each and every one of us is a ray of God's light and
yeah,
driven by the same centrifugal force. And you can see that as God, that centrifugal force, expressed uniquely and individually through each of us, which is why we are all created in the image of God, right?
yeah.
So I am that ray, you are that ray. Everyone is a unique ray of light created from the same source or the same energy. But that's what makes us one. So I might be here, you might be there, we might be we're not even seeing that we're coming from the same source. We might be fighting like hell, opposing each other, but when we really just allow ourselves to relax and chill and look back and see, oh, we are all created in the image of the divine, and we're all on our path together doing our own thing in the way that we should. So let's just put down our weapons for 5 seconds. And when all of us decide to do that at the same time, within a day, we'll have world peace. That's for sure.
And some of those weapons, like we talked about last week, are nothing but pendulums. And that's what's so sad
Yeah.
and shows you how delusional Chad and Lori got. The fact that they would swing their pendulum, and it would tell them whether someone was dark or light. And they felt like they had the right to remove life.
Yeah.
That's not your place to do that. And I know there's a lot of people on Telegram in these communities that sit there and swing pendulums, and that's what's terrifying. And I see that a lot too in the truther community as well. This whole us versus them, and I get it because I disgusted by the cabal as well. Like they're disgusting. They're horrible. They should justice should be they should face their justice. But when we get aggressive and we get to the us versus them state, we start accusing people of things they haven't done. It becomes like the crucible, which I don't know if you ever had to study the crucible, Shanti, but we do in the United States as part of our curriculum is in, it's a play. They made movies out of it, but it was about the Salem witch trials and how these teenage hormonal girls started accusing people of being witches, and it turned into this like clusterfuck of people just going crazy and accusing people, and this delusional and it's
If you were growing herbs, you were a witch.
oh, absolutely. They just, even if you didn't like someone, they would just accuse you of being a witch, and they were taking the
Yeah.
word of these like prepubescent hormonal girls and
burning you in the name of the Bible.
yeah. Well, yeah. And so I see that happening in the truther community too. It's like everybody's just on this like delusional train of just the train has gone so off course. Like it's, a while ago the Cassiopean said that they only 3% of humanity was actually going to be able to ascend to 4D at this point because so many people had gotten so thrown off. And that's a scary number to hear, but now I'm like, I get it because so many people have, the truther community in itself has turned into its own religion, that's violent and that's aggressive. And I just think, wow, the controllers got you exactly where they wanted you. You fell for it. You fell for it again. And so anyway, that to me was why I was hoping by talking about these cases, we could have like a reality check within ourselves because Chad and Lori Daybell, they were truthers. They believed in this timeline shift that was coming. They were prepping. They were buying land and food and camping. They probably
Even if you look at Jodie Hildebrand's house, right? I mean, if you're looking at the cops and things that went in there, I mean, they were saying she had these huge empty rooms, and I've no doubt that was also meant for some kind of stockpiling of something in there as well.
Yeah.
Because that's usually what they do.
And she had an escape route. So they are all in this same group of people, these preppers, which is, I'm sorry, Mormons, that's Mormon belief. Just because most Mormons in your ward might not be prepping, that's literally the name of your church. The church.
But isn't it so crazy? Because really, if we think about religion, what does every religion say? When you die, you go back to God or your creator, right? So why is everyone so fearful then of dying? If you really think about it like that.
I think Jesse was touching on, sorry guys, on Wednesdays I get up at 2:30 in the morning. So if you see me yawning, it's been a wild day. But Jesse kind of tapped into this a little bit, and maybe Jesse could go deeper into this because I'm only seeing this from an outsider's perspective. The Mormons don't necessarily believe in hell. They believe in something called outer darkness. That's where like Hitler goes, is outer darkness. And then they have these different levels of heaven. So like the celestial kingdom, the terrestrial, there's different levels. And so it's almost like a Nintendo game. Like you have to level up. I think that's why a lot of Mormons fear death.
To get higher, yeah, for sure. You got to climb the ladder. But even if you do have to climb the ladder, I mean, what do you think? If you've been a good person and you've done everything that God has intended for you to do, like right, as most of them, if they will see themselves as saints, then they would have done that. So why would you be requiring escape routes to get
from the government? So like if the government comes to collect you, so like the New World Order, because they talk about all the same things we talk about. That's what makes you kind of go, "Ooh, shoot, let me kind of reevaluate my opinions." So yeah, they believe like that this New World Order is going to come take them out, and so they have to get as escape routes in their house, and they have to run off to these tent cities to be protected from the bad guys. And but they take this really, I
FEMA
mean,
camps.
yes, right. I
No
mean,
running to FEMA camps.
right, goes running straight into the FEMA camp. Like that's, if you're running straight into, you fucked up if you're running straight into the FEMA camp. Um, so yeah, so they believe a lot of the same. But we have the Mormon population, a huge percent of them, a huge percent of them are Trump supporters, like most of us are. So there's this understanding. They just don't. I don't. But again, I think like a lot of the truther community, they don't realize they're actually part of the problem. They're part of the system, just like the truther community is part of the system. And that's the
Yeah,
wake up call. That's the
exactly.
wake up call we all need. So Lisa Diaz, so if you die and you're not top tier, do you come back? So do they believe in reincarnation? So this is what's interesting, Lisa
Yeah,
D.
they do.
Chad Daybell did. The Mormon church says no, but Chad Daybell didn't call it reincarnation. They called it probations, living multiple probations. So
Right.
that would be, and I've listened to non-members and members talk about this, and every person who is a member of the mainstream Latter-day Saints church says absolutely they don't believe in reincarnation. And most Christian denominations do not believe in reincarnation, even though it's spoken about a lot in the Bible, and especially in the missing books of the Bible, reincarnation. So riddle me that, Batman. But they definitely. But here's the thing: like if you're gonna be a cult leader, right? If you're gonna start a religion and you want to be the most Mac Daddy cult leaders that there ever was, you need people to depend on you. What's one of the tenets you're going to take out? Reincarnation, because you need to put people in a fear state.
Yeah, you've got to get them to depend on you. Charmaine, you're right. I have heard that as well. Sorry. Isn't it true that the Mormons
Yes,
believe that a woman can only go to heaven through her husband? Yes, and
yes,
that's why what I was listening to not long ago is that the divorce, there's such a high divorce rate now in the Mormon church, although they advocate for such strong family values, because because a couple of husbands have cottoned on to the fact that, ish, this is not quite cool. And then the women are encouraged to divorce their
yes.
husbands because the husband has to climb the ladder and
Because
she's
their
got to
fate has been
obviously,
sealed.
yeah.
It's so, and Edith should say yes. Edith said the Mormon Church says the only ones that will be with God, you have to have a temple recommend. So thank you for pointing that out, Edith. And that's like wackadoo to me. So the temple recommend. So when they call their churches wards, which to me it speaks volumes to call it a ward. I mean, we know church is also the name of a demon too. So but a ward, like I'm going to the ward, like that sounds like you're going to prison. But anyway, so the every day, like the Sunday, what we would call like a church service would be at their local ward. And then every ward has a bishop. They don't have like preachers like we do, like go to seminary school. Again, there's issues with seminary school as well, but I'm just trying to show the differences. From what I understand, a bishop is just somebody's dad in the congregation that gets picked to be the leader for a while, right? And then you have a stake president. So you have a collection of wards in an area. You have the bishops ahead. It's like a pyramid scheme. So you have the bishops ahead of these wards who answer to the stake president, which is above all these wards, which then goes up the ladder to the quorum of the 12, and then the prophet, his two advisors, which is the 15 men that are at the top that are all old ass men who probably wear the Penn's diapers, right? Just putting it out there. So to get to the temple, though, the temple is a different thing from the ward. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Edith, or any ex-Mormons in the chat. So you got your wards and then you have your temples. And the temples, Jesse was talking about the temples today. And if you are walking down the street and you see a Mormon temple, which they're beautiful the way that they're done, you cannot go into the temple unless you have a temple recommend from your bishop, right? So, as Edith said, you can't get into a certain level of heaven without a temple recommend. So you got to go through the temple. So, the bishop, another human being, has to give you the authority to go into the temple. And once you get into the temple, that's where all the secret shit happens, right? Because only like how like I've been to Paris, now I've gone into Notre Dame in Paris. You can just walk in. right? If you are, we got some churches down the street on Peachtree, you can just walk in. Anybody can walk in, not with the Mormons. And if you listen to what Jesse's saying, it makes sense why they have to keep it secret, right? Because there's rituals going on. The first episode she did last time, she brought up the baptism of the dead, which to me is one of the most disturbing things about Mormonism. Like, rude. That is so rude. Listen, if I die, do not baptize me for the dead. I do not give that. And they say stuff like, oh, well, if you baptize for the dead, the person's spirit will come to you and confirm that that's just like saying, I really want to have sex with this person, so I'm going to pull my pendulum out and ask their higher self. No, you need to ask the person in the lower body, because they're the people living out karma. And if you're going into whatever religion it is, if you're baptizing for the dead, stop. That you don't have that person's consent. It's rude. It's so freaking rude. It's disgusting. Don't do that. But they have, from what I understand, from what I've seen, and Edith is correct. They're big. So, tithing is a part of a lot of the Christian faiths, but most of the time, like, I grew up Presbyterian. I know my parents did tithe, but like, let's say one month they didn't. The Presbyterian church is not going to go like knocking on my parents' door asking for money. Like, that's not going to happen. There's no secret temples, but you're right, Edith. I have heard that if you're not up to date on your tithing, you can't get a temple. So if you're not giving the Mormon church money, you're
screwed, basically.
You're screwed. And this is what the Catholic Church did before the Protestant Reformation. They were having people buy their plots of land in heaven. That's the same stuff. Tithing to get to the temple, it's the same thing. You're buying your plots of land in heaven. We already had a reformation over this. That's not how this works. That's not how this works. There's a really great channel. Somebody had put her name in your comment section of one of your other videos, Shanti, and Alyssa, I want to say Whitaker. I can't remember her full name. Forgive me. If you guys know who I'm talking about, place it. Yeah, so you won't be. So if you're not rich enough to pay tithing, as Edith is saying, you won't get to be with God in the afterlife. Because, God's money, he's money hungry, isn't he?
Yeah, God needs money to survive.
Something that's man-made. God, but there's this girl, Alyssa, I can't, anyway, she has a pretty big channel. She's an ex-Mormon, and she was Charmaine. The Catholics will come to your door looking for your tithe. The Presbyterians won't. The Presbyterians are too drunk to do that. We're the drinkers. So, too drunk.
They'll just drink the Holy Communion wine.
We just, us and the Episcopalians, they call them Whiskapalians. We're the fun ones. Presbyterians and the Episcopalians, we're the fun ones.
And eat the crackers.
we dip the crackers in the vodka. They're too drunk. But this girl, Alyssa, I can't remember her full name. Anyway, she's got a great channel on YouTube, and she's an ex-Mormon. She's young. She's like in her early 30s, maybe late 20s, early 30s. Her and her husband left the Mormon faith, and she's exposing all the secrets. Like, she shows you the temple garment. Have you seen the temple garments, Shanti? Not the magic underwear.
I was going to say, no, I still want to see some of that magic underwear, though.
The temple garments, I'm sorry. If I had to go through the temple with my spouse, which I'm not married, but I've been with my boyfriend for a while. So let's say if I saw my boyfriend, Shanti knows my boyfriend. If I saw him in the outfits that they have to wear in the
instant divorce.
It's like no, I will never have sex with you again. I cannot unsee that. It is like a Raggedy Andy outfit. They have these little hats they wear. It's like a baby's bonnet on a full grown man. Like, I don't know if I would ever be able to get naked in front. I mean, I just
oh my goodness. So you all have to wear that. Wow.
So fair play to the Mormons who are able to still boink their spouses once they get out of the temple.
After that. Especially with that sexy underwear.
I mean, my boyfriend's sexy. He's got tattoos all over his body. He's fit because got a 6-pack, and if I had to see his ass in that freaking Raggedy Andy outfit.
No, thank you.
And the girl
Lovely.
was bad too. It's so sexy, right, Charmaine? It's so sexy. And I would not be able to keep a straight face. I think I would be I mean, I had a hard time keeping a straight face in church, just regular Presbyterian church growing up. My one friend, if we made eye contact in church, it was done. It was done. Lisa D says, my guy went to a business management meeting at the temple in Utah. Long story short, one guy with them asked for coffee. Yes. Yeah, they don't drink coffee. My man said the woman's hands were literally shaking when she brought yes. That I still don't understand that. Like, I don't get why the Mormons don't drink. Maybe they should have kept. Maybe if we just went and gave them all like a Starbucks or something, they would snap out of it. Like, maybe. So anyway, so anyway, but yeah, the temple is freaking, it's freaking, it's weird to me. It's weird as somebody who is not a Mormon, somebody who has never been a Mormon, somebody who is, yeah, it's man can't type with those nails. Oh, Charmaine, you can't type with your nails. I thought you meant like, okay, yeah. So anyway, it's definitely listening to everything Jesse had to say as somebody like myself who was not raised in the Illuminati, but is just nosy. A lot of things were like, yeah, that made a lot of dots were connecting with what and I say again, for the Mormons who are watching, I understand that it's hard to hear this stuff because you have an emotional connection to your childhood. This is your family's religion. But I would say you can still hold those good memories with your siblings or with your family as being just that, a good experience with your family, but see two things can be true. Right? Two things can be true. You can have really good memories of and we know that the Mormon people, just like a lot of the Christian people, they're really good people in these churches, in these wards that are earnest people and would never hurt anyone. They've just been grandfathered into this belief system. They've been mind programmed into a belief system that's not healthy.
Right.
And so I would definitely, just understand that we've all been hoodwinked, all of us. And I would just beg you to consider that two things can be true. And if you've read the Book of Mormon, which I'm assuming most Mormons have, what Jesse was saying, it just like me, somebody who's never been Mormon, it should be ringing some bells in your head. Like, this shit's not being pulled out of nowhere. Like, this is the whole Maya Aztec stuff, Incan stuff, like, duh. The whole Book of Mormon's about that. That's literally, if you were doing a book report on the Book of Mormon, that's literally it. That's it. So of course, they're going to use the darker side of these practices with the Mayas, the Incas, and the Aztecs and sell it to the Mormon people as a good practice because they've already hoodwinked them into believing that this was a Jewish practice. Like, once you
Very
see
interesting.
it.
It's so interesting when you start uncovering all of this and then you start seeing what's really going on. And most definitely, what's something that has become clear for me today is the fact that they really are the dark element of the Incas, Mayans, and the Aztecs, the darker side of them.
Yeah.
It really is them in disguise.
There was some good stuff. We were talking about the lost continent of Mu.
But there's always good, there's always good. There's always good.
Yeah, because darkness can't create anything. Only the light can create. So everything the darkness does is coming from the light and being inverted.
They just chose to obviously do that sort of stuff in the dark. I mean, when you're looking at a lot of the Mayans and stuff, as well from the positive side. I mean, they were unbelievably spiritual people of the land, people of the earth.
Absolutely. No, yeah, that would be like somebody, like, let's say something happened to our civilization and somebody from the future came and found our, the Illuminati stuff, and they labeled not all of us are, just a small group of people are doing that. So absolutely, there's some beautiful practices from these groups as well, but it just makes sense that that's how they're able to hoodwink people into doing the dark practices, because that's the basis of the Book of Mormon.
Right.
And check it out,
Exactly.
guys. Go check out my Book of Mormon. If you want something funny, Shanti, like if you're just chilling out at night, this guy's hysterical. His commentary, because he's like,
I will do actually. I actually will do. I'm gonna have some fun listening to that.
he's just saying what we're all thinking. And he can't pronounce the names at first because he's never heard of these names before. And that's one thing I want to say too, guys. I know a lot of Mormons talk about Moroni, which is something that Jesse spoke about. He's an angel for Mormon theology at this point. He's like an angel. Mormons, listen to me when I say this. No other Christian denomination knows who the hell you're talking about when you say Moroni. We don't have Moroni.
Yeah. But they do, which is
cool. They're like, Angel Moroni. I'm like, no, I don't know Angel Moroni. I know Michael. I know Gabriel. I know Raphael, but there's no Moroni. Like, who are you talking about?
They're angel.
They're like, Moroni. I'm like, no, I don't. I don't know Moroni. I don't know this dude.
Fabulous.
Who are you talking about? So anyway, so Mormons, just know that if you're talking to a regular Christian, they don't know who Moroni is. That's not an angel in the real world. So.
Yay. Lisa, nice to see you, even though you're late. We're actually on an hour now. So yeah, guys and girls, thank you.
I'm excited about Monday.
Yeah.
With Asia Rain.
So join us on Monday at 4 o'clock my time, 9 o'clock your time.
10.
What is it? Your 10? Okay. Yeah. 10 your time. Yeah. And we will have Asia Rain on, and she'll be enlightening us more on all of this stuff. So yeah, it's time that these disgusting practices get exposed.
Just for shits we should say 4 p.m. your time, 10 a.m. my time, 8 a.m. Utah time. We'll give the Utah time.
Okay, yeah, it will. 4 p.m. is 8 a.m. Utah. That's right.
Yep. So we'll say Utah time for all. This is for covering the Mormons. 10 a.m. East Coast time, 4 p.m. South Africa time, 8 a.m. Utah time. So for the Mormons, Salt Lake City, 8 a.m.
Indeed. Okay, all you beautiful people, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Bryce. And I look at myself, I look so pale.
Go get some sleep, girl. You seem like you're exhausted. Go get some sleep. Our day is only halfway through here in the United States. So
well, it's 7:30 my time, so I've got another hour or so before Grandma hits the sack.
You go get comfortable and just plug in that YouTube.
I would listen. I'm definitely going to listen to that stuff.
Get ready. Oh, have we talked about? Jessie needs to talk about, if she hasn't, how in Mormonism God lives on a planet named Kolob.
Kolob or Caleb?
Kolob. It's maybe Caleb. No, he lives on a planet named Kolob. You guys, like,
don't want to be telling Caleb that. Oh my gosh!
I'm telling you guys, this religion is so.
Mormons are coming to you, buddy.
It is so. I'm like, tell me more. Where is Kolob? I thought it was heaven. That's what we were taught in the Presbyterian church. But where is Kolob? So anyway, you guys.
Wow.
So. We'll
God bless y'all. Take good care, and we shall see you tomorrow at either 6 or 7 my time for Caleb as well. Friday, Joanne Breeze at 12 o'clock my time, noon. The Australian lady. Wow, guys, you must listen to her stuff if you haven't already. Absolutely insane. Australia is so rotten. And this woman has come through the worst of the worst, and she's just this shining, beautiful light. It's amazing. It's an absolute privilege to meet people like that, that's for sure. That's why I love what I do as well, even though some days I look pale like I am now. But anyway, y'all, take good care. I shall see you tomorrow with Caleb Show. Okay, bye. Thank you, Bryce. Lots of love.